Yo, 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 yo. What's up? How's everybody doing? As always, hello, great brethren. How are you guys doing today? I hope all is well. Thank you guys for tuning in. You can be anywhere in the world, but you're here, hanging out with me. So, great brethren, I want to give a big shout out to my bro, Abdullah. At the end of the day, corrections are good. And if you can't take constructive criticism, you can't take constructive criticism. So, big respect to my boy Abdullah, respect. So, he ended up dropping something off to me that was heavier than a ton. And that was back in 2019 or 2018. We're going to get into the article. The big man, Jack Johnson, former heavyweight champ, was actually pardoned. All right, so you'll be seeing the thumbnail in a second. Haven't actually uploaded that yet, but you'll be seeing the thumbnail and of the main man, Jack Johnson. So let's get into it. Hopefully you guys can all hear me. Let's get to the comments real quick. Did I put that in there? Yeah, so put a 1 in if you can hear me. All right. Okay. So if you guys can hear me, let's get into it. So the article is pretty simple. So President Trump posthumously actually granted heavyweight champ after 100 years due to what many deem racially motivated injustice. So Jack Johnson, former heavyweight champ and the world's first, he's not African American. They keep on putting that title on. I would say that he's indigenous or aboriginal to America. Now, you did have black so-called champions. Some were a good book to read. It talks about the gypsy boxers of Europe. And you have several so-called black men that were actually champions within Europe that were so-called black men, okay, that were heavyweight champs. And you had some American boxers that were so-called black that were champions. Go and look at Mike Tyson. He did a very good documentary. And you also have he's still rapping, but you have LL Cool J. His ancestor was a champion. I don't know if he was heavyweight. You can go back and check that. But he would be a chinny cock. So it is what it is. Check out LL Cool J. He's talked about this numerous times. You can go and look at Mike Tyson hotboxing when he interviewed LL, which was an interesting interview due to the fact that LL had a little bit of beef with Mike back in the day, especially with the cannabis video. Shouts out to LL. Okay, so he's the first African American to hold that. Again, he was the first so-called black to hold this title. Was serving a 10-month stint in Leavenworth prison in 1921 to be exact, when he sent President Woodrow Wilson a letter. Why on earth would he send Woodrow Wilson a letter? So you guys, if you want some context, so Woodrow Wilson was a so-called, he was a president back in the day, and Woodrow Wilson was a rabid racist. Let's just keep it 100. He ended up removing every single one of the black federal employees. Yep, moved all of them. And then he also moved all the black postal workers to the back. Make sure they couldn't actually work in the front, greeting people. And you have a long history of postal workers that are so-called black that were discriminated against. Shouts out to my postal workers. Respect, big respect. Also, you had a lot of black men, so-called black men, that built post offices. And they invested in what's called the postal savings system. Most of you guys don't know about that. You've heard about the Freedmen's Bank, but you have not heard about the postal savings system. You guys can go look that information up on your own. Along the way, 97-year road to presidential pardon was paid by biographers, boxing champs, senators, journalists, historians, musicians, and Sly, whose conversation with Trump about the Sylvester Stallone led to the third posthumous pardon, granted by President. Johnson was finally vindicated, but vindication wasn't what he wanted. He wanted his freedom. He would have been without any sentimentality about it, said Ken Burns, the filmmaker whose '04 documentary of which he wanted to pardon Johnson. He didn't think, I can get this, I can clear my name. This wasn't him. But Johnson did apply for a pardon in 1920. He sat in prison to serve 1-year sentence for violating the Mann Act. The Mann Act was transporting prostitutions across state line. Really, it was an act really created for him because his wife was a so-called white woman. Even the attorney general at the time had reservations about the case, since the Mann Act intended to punish human trafficking, not consensual relationships, i.e. marriage. By all accounts, a model prisoner, Johnson sent his pardon application to President Wilson in February 1921. Don't know why he would do that. By the time it got to the White House, Warren G. Harding had been sworn in. After a brief moment, it looked like Harding administration might actually grant it. Attorney General Harry M. Daugherty told reporters he might consider a pardon for Johnson. He changed his mind 4 days later. The mere suggestion of pardon had provoked an angry reaction. By whom, you might see? Oh, well, I'll tell you. Do you know his crimes against white women? Read one letter discovered by the Associated Press and the National Archives in 2011. Why pardon the Negro Johnson, who should have 50 years in prison for his crimes against white women? Read another. And with that, the files were closed 83 years later. Wonder who wrote that. Unforgivable Blackness aired on PBS, and that was a good documentary in '04. Burns film told Johnson's story against the backdrop of Jim Crow America. The only thing worse than black heavyweight champion with a black heavyweight champion who dated a white woman. Wow. The reason Jack Johnson was so beset by his own country, a country ironically which had only recently reaffirmed that all men were created equal, was because his unforgivable blackness. Du Bois actually wrote. Du Bois, the Huguenot. Burns stated pushing for the pardon even before the documentary aired. He said the ideal to pardon actually came from Joe De La Pasco, the longtime publicist. De La Pasco said it was Burns' ideal. By the time they put together a committee, including Public Enemy rapper Chuck D. As he stated, Elvis was a hero to most, but he never made... Yeah, I can't even go all into that. Jazz musician Wynton Marsalis and Samuel L. Jackson and Senator John McCain and Ted Kennedy. At one time, only one posthumous pardon had ever been granted. Lieutenant Henry Flipper, a former slave, Buffalo soldier, and the first black, there you go, at least they didn't say African American, graduate of West Point. He was convicted of conduct unbecoming of an officer in a racially motivated military trial. Yeah, that was really awful. I might do a short on that. The committee saw John Siegel, a New York attorney, draft Johnson's petition. Siegel saw parallels in Flipper's case in Clinton. So they were using it as precedents. Precedent means that they were actually using the other case to actually establish a summary judgment or judgment within the court. Oh, okay, well, look, this happened in this case, so we can use this in order to get this case, actually taken to trial and it parallels. So that's all that precedence means. So they'll just use that other case. Like, look, in Lemon versus Kurtzman, this new car law with this new car that's faulty, we can use Lemon versus Kurtzman because it establishes cars that are faulty and things of that nature that are dangerous to the public, and you have a duty of care. Duty of care shows negligence, and you have 3 prongs of duty of care or negligence, and one is duty of care, reasonable man standard, and the other one, if I can remember, is reasonable man standard, duty of care, and foreseeable cause. So, but the formal process of requesting a pardon doesn't anticipate posthumous pardon, so Siegel attempted to check all the boxes as he could. Full name: John Arthur Johnson, the first, again with the African American, so-called black heavyweight boxing champion. Address, Graceland Cemetery, Chi-Town, Illinois. Social Security number unknown. Again, Social Security numbers, he didn't have one back then. They didn't actually establish Social Security until a while before he had passed. Bush, White House, not going to happen. The offices of pardon attorney flatly shot down applications, long-standing Justice Department policy. Okay, George Bush was the president, and Burns said White House officials were even more blunt. It was told to Karl Rove, not going to happen. He remembered Thursday, this was it. Beginning and end of statement. Bush would later grant posthumous pardon to Charlie Winters, a former government procurer officer who had been convicted of violating the Neutrality Act by helping Israel obtain B-17 bombers during the Arab-Israeli War in 1948, and was another filmmaker, Steven Spielberg, who brought the Winters case to Bush's attention. All right, the president, Barack Obama, took office, and some saw Obama as a natural ally to Johnson's case. Obama never strayed from Justice Department policy on pardons. We had no traction with the Obama administration, Burns said. Could you imagine what would happen given the racial dimensions of this if a so-called black president had a black attorney general had suggested a possible pardon of Jack Johnson? The black attorney general was Eric Holder, told the New York television station in 2016. There's no question that Johnson's conviction was historical justice, but there's a big but, and I'm not talking about a thick chick in a Nelly video or Luke video or a video for Pop That. Nope, I'm not talking about thick chicks. No buts. This is the but we're dealing with. He said they were contravailing concerns about the way he treated women. Belle Schreiber, the alleged prostitute that Johnson was convicted of transporting across state line, was a moral purpose that Johnson had beaten her. Yeah, blah, blah, blah. So, after all this, the balance before the president of his successor would make determining the pardon is appropriate, he said. Johnson, Burns acknowledged it's controversial, perhaps even more than the era of Me Too movement. This was back in 2019, 2018. So, I assume it had to do with Johnson's checkered past and complicated personal life, and not the interests of justice, he said. Still, see, that's what I'm talking about. Okay. Still, the case picked up some support of Congress over a decade. Resolutions argue and pardons the Senate and the House, but both not going to happen. Then in 2015, it was attached to Every Student Succeeds Act and passed. Obama signed the bill, but not the pardon. In retrospect, Attorney Siegel said that Burns' committee had not been naive about the subject and difficulty that would be with political gridlock. So, going down to when Trump, shouts out to Trump, Obama always sought Justice Department recommendation before granting presidential clemency. Trump approach had done the opposite. All 4 pardons so far have been circumvented by the Justice Department process, even while rejecting applications for people who have formally applied. That's good for him. Trump also takes advice from his circle and friends, and he's particularly interested in doing things his predecessors wouldn't or could not do or should not do or would not do. So basically, one thing I would say about President Obama was that he was a constitutional lawyer, so he actually knew all the constitutional chains, blah, 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 blah. But he didn't pardon so-called Jack Johnson. So getting back to the article, Sylvester Stallone called me with the story of the heavyweight. This is President Trump. Okay, former president. Sylvester Stallone called me with the story of the heavyweight boxing champ. His trials and tribulations were great. His life is complex. Trump tweeted, others have looked at this over the years. Most thought it would be done, but yes, I am considering a full pardon. 33 days later, boom, it happened. Good for him. So, shout out to him for doing this. So let's just take you over to some quick picks, and we'll be back in a second. So this is the big man, Jack Johnson. That's his wife. All right. Yep. That's her with the little the hat right there. The big hat. Why do one of them always like them big old hats back in the 20s and 1910s? I'll never understand. At the grill, shining. I see you, bruh. And that right there is the former lineal champion. I think he's a lineal champion. You can correct me if I'm wrong. the Bomb Squad. Then you got Lennox Lewis, Sly Stallone. All right, you got the other champ right over there. All right, and that's Trump right there in the center. Shouts out to him, man, for doing that. And there you go, loving couple. That's right. He's sitting there with his missus, chilling. All right, chilling, doing his thing. Have the nice hat on. You know what I'm saying? Does that look like an abusive relationship? No, so-called black men. That's not. That's a loving relationship between a man and a wife. This man had to serve a year in jail for some straight up bullshit. But I digress. Let's get back to the jams. Okay. Okay. Now, brothers, what do you think? You think that this was a just cause? No, it wasn't. It wasn't a just cause. It was based on a litany of injustice. And a big shout out to my bro, Abdullah. Thanks for dropping this info. Appreciate it. So again, corrections are good. And I'm glad he actually dropped that correction. Respect. But at the end of the day, we see the trail. We see the disrespect of so-called ebony men. Oh yes, we see it. We see it. All right. It happened in 1900s, now 1920s. The same chicanery and skullduggery, man. So back then they were concerned with the women suffragettes. All right. They didn't really want to piss them off. Okay. They were like, you don't know. We don't know. We don't know if we should really upset them, right? Why? Why did they want to upset them? Because they recently petitioned and gained the right to vote. And you had many suffragettes at that time that were connected to the WKKK, all right, which actually was way more funded and way more economically solvent than the men's KKK. You know, it is what it is. For the most part, they wore white for solidarity. Okay, during marches. It is what it is. So, doesn't time parallel itself? So you had all the way back then the suffragette movement, and they were we don't want to upset the women. They're the majority of citizens because you had outbreaks of different diseases that caused death in 1880s. Okay, we discussed that in previous videos. You also have the World War I that caused a lot of death amongst the young men, specifically white. So you were at a deficit or a shortage of men in general. And I like to give deepest empathy and sympathy towards all the soldiers that passed away World War I. Okay, it doesn't matter what your skin color is. It is what it is. Okay, so if you had a family member that actually lost their life during that, big sorrow, sadness, hope all is well, and I hope you remember them and make sure you keep them in memory. Once you stop saying their names, they fade from memory. A picture is okay, but remember them. So at the end of the day, same thing was going on then. Same thing was going on when President Trump was actually signing that into office, giving the pardon. They were concerned about all these different things. And it's almost like this paralleling of time. Sad. It took over 100 years after this act was actually created in order for it to actually be some justice actually be given out and dished out to Jack Johnson. Isn't that a shame? You had Jesse Jackson running for president in '84. Okay. You had women elected to different offices and positions all the way up from 60s, 70s, etc., etc., etc. This bill was brought up on the congressional floor numerous times. I mean, numerous. You had individuals such as Muhammad Ali, individuals such as Mike Tyson, and this is decades where this was actually brought up and discussed. Because I know one thing, and one thing, Mike Tyson is a historian of boxing. That guy, his mind is like a lockbox when it comes to boxing history. I mean, he could actually write a great book about boxing history. The guy knows his stuff. He's watched film. If I want to watch anybody talk about boxing, not just because he was a heavyweight champion, but because that man knows the history. And you respect a man that knows the history of something. All right, respect. Big respect to him with his knowledge and wisdom as pertains to boxing, the pugilistic art. So, Jack Johnson, L. Caught an L years ago, decades ago. Now, it's all been solved. So, brothers, this wasn't going to be a long drop. All right. Not at all. So, let's see if we can go to the article. See if we can do a screen share. All right. So, at the end of the day, sad state. But this is what it is. So if you guys can see the article right there. And I'll check. So at the end of the day, the man lost a year. Of course, different roadblocks were actually put in his path towards retaining the title that he actually earned. And they have a video. Let's see if we can play this video. So if you can hear the video, cool. If you can't, you can just go to this page. It's USA Today. And I might actually, you know what? I'll just drop the video link for you guys and wish you guys a great day. Thanks for tuning in, and I'm out.